Hi, welcome to this React hooks class. Today, we are going to be talking about the useState hook. useState is a hook in React that allows you to manage states in your components. It takes two arguments, the initial state and a function that updates the state. You can call the setState function with the new state value to update the state. The useState is a very powerful hook that can be used to manage states in your components. It is a great way to keep your components dry and easy to maintain. The useState hook can keep track of strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, objects, and any combination of these. We could create multiple state hooks as we would see later in this class. This is a quick demo of what we are going to be building in this class. We are going to be seeing the power of useState hook in action. Here in example 1, I am going to type a username and it is being shown in real time without reloading of the browser. It is being shown in real time. Coding_university is being typed as a username and that showed in real time. That is the power of the useState hook, people. Example 2 here is going to be updating the cart items, increasing and decreasing in real time without reloading of the browser. Example 3, I'm going to type different subjects and they are being updated in real time. Also, deletion of these subjects are going to be happening in real time, as you can see, right? In real time. So this is what happens under the hood. I mean, with the power of the useState hook, this is possible. It all happens under the hood and we see them live on the front end. Isn't that wonderful? I can't wait to show you the amazing power of the useState hook. I strongly recommend that everyone taking this course should be familiar with the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, of course, and the basis of creating a React app. If you don't already know those, you can still follow as I will do my best to explain in detail. The source code will be pushed to GitHub and available for download anytime, forever, of course. I will add a link to the description of this video. I am Hey, the creator of this video. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, smash that like button, and kindly share your opinions in the comment section. Also, please share this video with your network and follow me on Twitter for more awesome contents. Thank you, and let's dive into the lecture. See you there. We are going to start with this empty web application, which I showed you earlier. And why did I say it's empty? It's simply because now if I type something, it's not showing up here, right? That's because we've not implemented the useState hook. And also, if I try to increase this, it's not going to happen. If I click on the decrease, it's not going to happen. Also, if I type something in the subject inputs, nothing is going to be added. Instead, it's just going to reload the page, which should really not happen if we have implemented our code and implemented the useState hook. So now we're going to go into the Visual Studio Code and start coding. So first off, basically I have the empty box that we are seeing on the front, the user side of the application, which is this one, which some people like to call the front end, but I like to refer to the front end as the code base that operates the UI, which is the user interface that the users see, not necessarily the things that we just see here, right? So the front end code is what I like to refer to as front end, and the back end code is what I like to refer to as the back end. However, in this web application, what we have is mainly front end, because we're not really pulling data from the database. So when we have database that we are adding data to and pulling data from, then we say we have, so we need to actually build a backend that we let that happen under the hood. So but now what we have is mainly the front end code, which is what we have here. It's a Nest.js framework operating the React.js libraries, which is a basically a JavaScript library, as you may already know from the introduction. So now I have written some code here. Basically, these are just like HTML skeleton that is showing what we're seeing here. Also, we have the CSS that basically beautify the UI. What we're seeing here, all this fancy stuff are made possible with the power of CSS, which is just a cascading styling sheet. But this class is not about CSS, neither is it about JSX. Why we call this JSX is simply because even though I have written it as j.js, it's kind of a JSX file, because it allows both JavaScript and HTML tags to be written within this page. So now I'm not going to waste any more time. I'll just dive into it. So first thing we need to do is to import the useState hook from React. So we're going to import the useState hook from React, and after we have done that, we need to create our states. Like I told you earlier, we could have states that are holding a string. We could have states that is holding an integer. We could have a state that is holding an array. We could have a state that is holding an object. We could have state holding different data types. So, but here I'm going to start with trying to make this first example functional. So we have an input feed, and we want to make sure that when we type something like job, it appears here. But here we're trying to mimic a user on the internet that is entering his or her username. So let's say my username is dev_anifo_share. So this is going to appear, we want it to appear here, right? So let's go into the Visual Studio Code and make that happen. So to begin, we're going to declare some variable. So we're going to have like a username, and we're going to have a set username. Basically, how you use the useState hook is such that you have a useState holding that useState hook holding a particular variable or object, whatever you have. Then you destructure this current state and the function that you're going to set that particular state from the useState hook. And that is what we're going to be seeing now. So we're going to say useState, and inside it, we're going to put an empty string. So here I'm going to say we have a string, a useState that is holding a string data type. And also, so that I can just, complete, okay, maybe I can come back to it. Okay, let me just do it now. So we're going to also declare another state, and that is going to be the cart item. Let me say cart items, set cart items. And then this is going to also be using the useState hook. The useState hook, and this is simply going to be holding an integer, which is going to be, we're going to initialize that with a value of 0, and this is an integer. Then we're going to also declare one that is going to be the subject inputs, and we can just say something like subjects. Actually, it's going to be the array of subjects. So basically, you can guess this data type that is going to be held in this useState hook is going to likely be an array. So we're going to say set subjects, and we're destructuring that from the useState hook, and that is going to initialize with an empty array. So we're going to put, okay, let's just comment this so that when other people are looking at our code, they understand that this is starting with an array. Also, I like to initialize another to declare another useState variable. So I'm going to have the subject input. Basically, I want this to control. We shall see what I'm going to do with this later on, but let's just type it out right now. So set sub, let's say set sub inputs, and we're going to be destructuring that from also the useState hook, and we're initializing that with an empty string. So we're going to say this is a string. So now we have our states already declared. So now what we need to do now is this username is going to be the one that is going to be here, right? So what we need to do now is to handle the input when someone types, say, James Bond. Oh my God, I like that guy, James Bond. Okay, so we want it to appear here, okay, and we want it to appear in real time. Like, we really shouldn't have to do anything. Once we type it in, we want it to start appearing without us clicking anything. And as you may have guessed, what we need to do is to handle this input feed with an unchanged handle. So an unchanged handler. So basically what we're going to do now is to, let's declare a variable const. We can say something like handle, let's say username, handle username equals, so we're going to set something when we make a change to that input field. So we're going to say username, and that is going to be the target, the value of the target. Like I said, you may need to understand some basics of JavaScript to really understand this course, but I think it is pretty straightforward, and I will do my best to explain in detail what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to end that there, and basically here what we have now is a function. Oh, sorry, I didn't write that correctly. So okay, so what we have now, it's an arrow function, so that is named handle username. So as you may have guessed, what we're going to do with this handle username function is to use it where we have the example one, right? So we're going to have, this is the input feed that controls this place, right? So as you can see, you already see, right? So here we have this div. In the div, we have hold on one second. So here we have this updating username, and you can trace that to this place. And then we have the input field, which is just a form right here holding the input field. Actually, here we really don't need a form, but I mean, I just like to put it there because we're not going to be doing any submission. We're just going to be entering our text, and we're going to be seeing the changes that we desire. Okay, so now I'm going to say set the value of this input feed to be, so it's going to be the username that we destructure from the useState hook that above. Also, we're going to have an unchanged handler. So we're going to have this unchanged events, I should say, and that is going to be executing a function, which is the one that we describe right here, right? So once we make changes to this input feed, we want this function to run, and that is as simple as that, as simple as it gets. So it's going to set the value of this username to the value of the target that we are, where we are running this function. And really, this example one should be ready to go. Now I'm just going to refresh. Really, I shouldn't have to, but anyway, let's see. Let's not refresh. Let's type. Okay, so I'm typing, right? But I'm not seeing anything, right? Yeah, that is as expected because I have not defined what should be displaying right here, right? So I need to do that, okay? But as you are writing code, you don't want to, it's not until when you actually make it visible at the user side that you should see it, right? It is really a good idea to kind of see your changes in the console, right? So now I'm going to do something like that before we do what we're actually going to do. So I'm going to, once we have the unchanged events fired in that input feed, we want to set the username to be this value, that the target value, right? Also, we don't want to stop there. We want to console.log the current value of username. Okay, so we want to do this, right? So we want to console.log the current value of username, and so we should be able to see something even though we are not yet outputting the value of the username above this input feed. Okay, so just to satisfy my paranoia, I'm just going to refresh this. Okay, and now let's inspect this page and bring up the console, and then let's see the magic happen. Dev, as you can see, dev underscore username, and here we see the dev underscore username written out, and so now we see it working. I'm going to then output it right here. Oh, sorry, actually I don't know if you noticed something. So the entire string was not showing simply because we are already setting this before we console.log. So it's showing us the previous data of the username. But now let's not console to the let's not log to the console. Let's actually type it out. Now that we have just one line, we can easily delete this guy and put it on one line. When you're using arrow function in JavaScript, you really don't have to use the curly braces. You just, if you're having just one line, if it's a one-liner function, you can just discard the curly braces and just have your statement there. Okay, so now we want to show it right here when we're typing it. And how are we going to do that? So basically, let's go to the example one and see where we can put it. So I already, like I said earlier, I already have some CSS lines that are going to style the HTML tags. So now I'm looking for the right place. So we want to have it beneath this guy, right? So, okay, I think I already have it there. So I don't want you to see me typing all this because then I'm going to waste your time and my time. So now let's just say your username is. So now with just that, we should be able to see something, right? You can see, right? And that is the good thing about React.js. It's like instantaneous. Once you make changes, the DOM automatically, once the states of your DOM, the components on your DOM changes, it automatically updates the particular components that change, that updates. And you can even make it fun, by using some memoized hooks, which we would be seeing later on in this series that we have started. Well, today is just useState hook. So now I could just say username, right? I could just say username, right? And but okay, sorry. Since this username is a variable, I need to put it within these curly braces. And then if I come here, if we refresh, you can see there is nothing, and that is expected, right? Because what are we initializing with? We are initializing with an empty string. But then the moment we start typing, you can see, right? We start saying something. So let's say coding underscore university, and that is what we are seeing right now, right? We are seeing it's being shown here, and that is awesome. That is the power of the useState hook. Basically, what is happening here is that as we are making these changes, umbrella, the setState function is immediately setting this, because we said that we want to fire this function. We want to call this function once we start making changes to this input feed. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are setting the username. The username, the set username function is setting the state of the username, and that is what is happening. So basically, at this moment in time, the state of the username is no longer an empty string. It is whatever we have typed. It is whatever this eTarget.value is, right? And that is exactly what we are seeing here. But we want to do something which is what is common in in a big application, because at some point in time, right, there is no username. So in our demo, which I showed to you, you saw that we had a state whereby we displayed your username is not set, right? So meaning we want to use a ternary operator. We want to use a ternary operator to conditionally set this thing right here, right? So in which case, we're going to just say something like, we're going to check the value of the username. So we're going to say if the value of the username is not the initial state of the username, basically it's not an empty string, we want to conditionally display the username. So we're just going to say display the username, right? And then here's with a colon, we're going to say it should display not set. Okay, we're going to say it should display not set. And if we come here, you can see, right, because this whole page actually reloads when we remount, when I came back to this place, and that is because I made changes to the source code. And so this whole thing basically just recompile, and then it shows the initialize the initial state of this username, right? And so when we start typing now, coding, you can see, right, it's no longer not set, it is now set, and it is the value of the input feed, right? Now you remember in the demo I had colored this whatever thing we were showing here, right? So let's do that. So basically we just need to wrap this in a div. Let's just do that right now. So I'm going to, since I'm going to enter convert this to HTML tag, so I'm going to have to start with a bracket, right? And I can then initialize with start with a div. Open a div. Okay, oh my gosh, that is not correct. Div, and then close it. All right, so we're gonna have let's say user. Actually, I will need another curly brace and put our username in there, and then with the class name, I think corpus -hyphen username. Now the corpus -hyphen username, it's the one that is going to give us the right color, and now it's still non-set. Now let's see. Now you can see, right, demo, you can see a beard, right? You can see a name for share, right? But it's not as smooth as what I showed you in the demo, right? And that is because here you can see that there is no spacing between this is and the particular value that we are showing here, right? So I can quickly fix that by just attaching a space here. So I'm going to use this NBSP semicolon. This should provide us with that much desired space. As you can see, right, it's now, the space is now there, and looks like we should be all set. Good. So this is complete, and we can see it's now working. So we could say something like Lillian underscore animats. excuse me, whatever username, you want to set, you can then begin to set it and it's going to show up right here, right? And that is really awesome. That is the power of the useState hook. And as you can see, we don't have to use the this keyword to manage the state. We just use the setState function. In this case, it is the set username function to change the state of the variable username that will be structured out of the useState hook. And that is so awesome. So awesome. So it looks like that is completed. We can move to the next one. Now if we try to increment this, nothing is gonna happen. If we decrement it, nothing is gonna happen. So now we want to attach an handler there, like I already wrote down here as a prompter, that I need to create a cat update handler. And that is going to be easy because all we just need to do is to increment the current value of that state that we are handling when we click this button, right? And so let's start doing that. So now I'm going to declare a variable constant, a constant I should say, because it's not changing. So this is a constant and I'm going to call it undo. I don't like this thing, it's just standing in my way. And the cat norm increase. Basically, it has to be descriptive, right? So that other people reading our code, we understand what we're trying to do. Because we are not writing the code for just our consumption or for the functionality of the application, but also for the people that will come later in the future to maybe troubleshoot whatever thing is going on wrong in our code. So now we have an handler, a function, and what are we trying to do here? It's pretty simple. We want to set, because now we have this variable here, right? This card items, and then we have this function, the set state function there. So we are going to use the set state function. So that will be set card items, and we're basically just going to take the value and we're going to do something like this. The current value of that state plus 1. We're just going to increment it, right? And depending on whatever you want to increment with, you can decide, based on the business need. If the business need requires that you increment with by 2, then you go ahead and do that, right? So now looks like we should be all set. And I'm going to just, I like to put my colon there, even though the Prettier plugin in this Visual Studio Code is going to do that by default. I just like to do that myself, I like to write my code. Okay. All right, so it looks like we're just going to make an opposite of this. I'll just copy it. I like to be productive. So let's say this one will be decrease. So we're going to decrement this, and as you can guess, we just need to do e-1, and that is all we need to do. Oh, actually, we need to then call this function when we click on the buttons that increment the value. And that is happening here. So this, you can see this component that I created here, it's actually a component to add the plus icon. I downloaded the SVG file from, I think, what is it called again? Something icon, something like that. Anyway, I'll probably put it in the description in case you need to use some really nice SVG. So now I'm going to say on click. I'm going to add an on click here, and it's going to basically call this function. Okay, now when we click on the plus icon, it should increment the value, and when we the value of these states, you remember we're trying to manipulate this state, right? The state of this variable. So, and that's what we are trying to do here. We are using the set states function of the useState hook to set cart items, and we are incrementing by 1 once we call this function. And then when we call this undo cart number decrease function, we're basically going to decrease by a factor of 1. And now we may not really see anything. What we basically need to do here is to display. Let me see, where are we displaying that? Oh, we are displaying just below this, right? And here we should have okay, so let's type something. Let's just crudely display it right here. I'm just going to display it without any fancy styling. So let's just call the cart item. Let's write display the cart items here. So now let's go back here, and you can see, right, it's still showing the current state of the cart item. Let's refresh. It's 0. It goes back to 0. If I let me increase so you could see, right, it's 0, right? Let me take it back so we can press this. Okay, so let's decrease. You can see, right, we're going to correct all these things, because in a real world application, you don't want to get to the negative value, you know, when the user continued pressing the negative button. You don't want to keep getting something like this, but we're going to fix that. And you can see, right, it's working, and that is really good. The whole world is happy when things are working. Awesome. So now let's give it some styling, and we're going to basically just okay, let's do the same ternary operator that we used earlier. So we're going to do we're going to check this. If this is equals 0, we basically want to say, okay, cart items, right? However, if it is not equal to 0, we want to do something. We want to let's say your cart is, I think that is what we used, right? Your cart is empty. Your cart is empty, and that is not good. You need to buy something so that you can make Jeff Bezos very rich. That's supposed to be a punchline. Okay, so now let's go to 0. Now we can see, right, your cart is empty. If we increment it, it goes back, right? If we decrement it, it goes back. Now let's continue to decrement it and see what happened. You can see, right, we are still getting -6. You know, we went to the negative side of the numerics. So, but now that's not what we want. We're going to fix that in a moment. So, but let's give this a little bit of styling. So let's we already defined some CSS class to give this a really nice, you know, look, which the user wants, you know. Okay, so let's now throw it in here. The class name for the CSS string is, class, it's CU example 2 norm. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have there. So now we are going to, let me think. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I know what is going on. Need to put this in another div. Okay, well, we are going to style this. Let's put it in. Okay, there's an empty tag. Okay, so this guy, I chose it not to, I already defined it not to stand by itself, so it's not going to be by itself. Okay, so let me invite a bracket. Okay, so it looks like we are all set with the cart items. We are updating it correctly. As you can see, we are updating it correctly and we are decreasing it correctly. However, it's still going into the negative state, right? And we want to fix that. We want to fix that. So how do we fix that? So let's think about this for a second. So we increment, right? And then we start decreasing, right? So when it gets to 0, we don't want it to go further. We don't want this to do anything, right? So basically what we want to say here is, let's see how we can conditionally make that possible. Let's see what we can do. So we are saying if this is not equal to 0, it should give us the card items, and then if it is equal to 0, it should give us this essentially. So if it is not true, definitely it's going to be false. And so once it is equal to 0, we don't want to display these card items. Once it is equal to 0, we still want to say it is empty, right? So basically what we need to do there is to probably have another ternary operator here and say, let's say, so if it's not equal to 0, it should display this. If it is equal to 0, it should display that. And okay, so I think we need to go up here and do some work on this guy. Yeah, we need to basically control the way we decrement the value. We don't just want this to decrement, we want it to check the card items value, right? So we're going to say card items, let's check this guy. So once it is greater or equals to 1, we can go ahead and decrement and set, let me just copy from here, and set the state value. And then we say yes, we want to keep it at 0. Nothing should happen, just keep it at 0. Okay, we just keep it at 0, right? Awesome. So I think this should do. So let's see how that helps us now. So basically I'm going to just refresh this to feel good. Okay, so now let's add. We're adding, is going fine, correct, good. Now let's decrement. Now we can see, right, nothing is happening. It's not going to the negative value, right? That is awesome. That is very, very awesome. So let's put this at number 5. Just whatever thing we want. Okay, so now we want to set this so that when we enter, like say JavaScript, is going and we click on this, is going to just add it here, right? But because we have not added any handler to this, any event handler to this input field and this button, nothing is going to happen. So now let's quickly fix that, and that will be the last one, where we're going to be working with this array, this useState hook that is holding an array. So let's go to that handler that I had written here as a comment. And so let's start it. Let's start. So I'm going to basically add an event handler. Let's const, let's say handle subject something, subject change maybe. And we're going to basically just do E, and this is an arrow function. You already know that. Let's say subject, okay, let's say sub inputs, because that is what we have, right? It has to be what we have defined, right? So we're going to set that value to be the target value, the input target value, the input value, right? The input feed value, right? So now we can safely put this guy in the where is example 3? So we have these inputs here. So I'm going to just say, let's say something like, let's say the value to be equals to, okay, so we're going to set the value to be equal to the subject's inputs. And also we should have an unchanged event. Unchanged, we're going to put the handler that we created, and the subject change. Basically this is just going to, this function once called, we set the value of the sub inputs to whatever we type in there. And then we are going to go to the last step, which is attaching an event handler to this button, such that when we click on this button, it's going to output whatever we had added, and then when we add another thing, it's going to add it. So it's going to create an array, an empty array, put it, so we initialize with an empty array, right? So whatever we had in this input feed is going to be added to that empty array. It's going to be pushed to that empty array. We're going to use the push method, right, to push it into the empty array. And then when we add another one, it's going to set the state value of that subject array to include the new item that we have added. And we're going to do similar thing to remove, an item from that array. And I tell you, it's going to be fun because we're going to be using the power of the map and the filter, those really fun higher order functions. Okay, so let's get started with that. And that is going to bring us back to the undo subject lists handler. Oh, okay, so we're going to actually have a different handler for that. So let's say const let's handle, what are we handling here? So we want to add it, right? Add subjects. We want to add a subject, right? And we're going to bring the really nice arrow function, and we're going to do something cool. We're going to prevent defaults. And while we are preventing defaults, you may already know prevent defaults is such that is so that when we click the actually I need to call it, when we click the button that is attached, the button to which we are adding this function to be called, is going to prevent the default function or the default behavior of that form, which is basically, normally when you click on this a button in a form, it's going to attempt to submit the form, right? You usually have an action where you direct whatever thing you are trying to push to your database or whatever place you're trying to push it to, maybe another route. But here we are just doing some simple stuff. We don't want to do that, and we just want to add the events handler here and do some really cool stuff. Okay, so now let's go back to the function that we are trying to define. Okay, so now we have an array that we have initialized, right, with the useState hook here. This subject, if we console.log, is going to tell us that it's an empty array, which we initialized with here, right? But then we want to manipulate this array. We want to get the value of this input here, this sub input, and add it, excuse me, and push it to this array. How are we going to do that? It is simple. So, okay, so let's go back here. Where are we? Okay, so let's go back here and let's just define something. You can define any variable you want. It's a let keyword. You can change it as you like, but I like to use something descriptive, so I'm going to say let subject array, I got that wrong, let subject array be equal to, so we want to conditionally define subject array, because at some point in time subject array is not going to exist. It's going to just be an empty array, right? So I'm going to say if there is no, we're going to check the length of the subject array. It's an array, right? So it's going to have this method that is called, this property that is called length, right? So we can check the length, and the length, if it is equal to okay, we are not using equal here. We are using this exclamation, basically saying that if this is null, that is, if this does not exist. So we want to say it should tell us that this thing is an array, is an empty array. And if it does exist, if it does have a length, because okay, let's go a little bit slow. So if it does have a length, then we can then say that that subject array, it's indeed the subject, right? So basically what that means is that so let's say the subject is equal to, let's say subject is equal to something like this. Let's say it's equal to let's say Java, or let's say JavaScript. That is much better since we are doing JavaScript. So let's say it's equal to JavaScript, right? Or let's say anyway, we know the value. Let's just say the variable here is a, right? A is equal to this. So the length of a, if we conditionally check the length of a, is going to just be equal to what? It's going to be 1, because the length of the item in A is what is 1, which is at position number 0. But here, that's not what we're doing. We are not doing JavaScript. So that is just a side note in case you're trying to understand what is going on here. And I'll tell you why I'm doing this shortly. So now we are going to define a constant, and we're going to say all the subjects, because we want to, at a point in time, we want to know how many subjects, how many items we have in that array. So I'm going to say this constant is going to conditionally check the input feed that we are inputting the subject, right? So we're going to say check this input feed. If this input feed exists, I mean, if there is something in the input feed, meaning if it is not an empty string, we want to push. Actually, I should say something like this. Anyway, let's leave it like this for now and see what happens. So let's say subject array. So this subject array that we already know, we are aware of, we can then just push it. We'll use the push method of that subject array object that we created. I mean, everything is an object, right? So we're going to have this sub inputs pushed, the value that we are entering, we're going to push it. And then if the sub inputs, basically if there is nothing in the input feed, we just want to return null. Basically there will be no subjects to display, right? So now we need to do something more. We need to set the sub inputs. Basically, we need to set this one to null, meaning once we call this function and we add this subject to the array, we want to return nothing. We want to set the subject input. Basically, the input feed will become empty, right? And then we have this right here. And then we also need to set this thing, which is the most important one. Set the subject's inputs to have the subject array that we created, right? Because we cannot use the same subject to set the subject, right? We created one that we can conditionally, we can manipulate and then use it to set the array, the subject array that we need to use. Okay, looks like we should be all good with this. Let's test it and see what happens. Oh, actually, not so fast, not so fast. Why are you moving so fast? Okay, so now we need to then call that function, and this is where we're going to call the function. We're going to click events, and then we call the function. So when we call the function, we should be adding that. So I'm going to do something more. So because we're going to be adding the subjects to that array, here we are going to show that subject. Let's show it below this tag. Let's just show it, right? We are going to design it, do all those fancy stuff. But for now, let's just show the raw subject, and let's see if the world is already rejoicing. Okay, so now let's just refresh, just do some paranoid stuff. And let's say here we have Python. And let's add it and see what happens. Perfect. That is so wonderful. Now we can see, right, we just added Python. So I'm going to add another thing. Let's see what happens. Let's add Java. Oh, looks like we didn't get Java. What is going on? Oh, I know what is going on. So here we have an array, which is the subject, right? So here is just it's picking the first item of the array. So we need to loop through the array, loop through the array to display all the items in the array, right? And if we want to do that so crudely, we can just do something very fast, not so fancy. Map through it, get the value, then throw out this. Let's just say it should give us a div. Div. Let's close that tag quickly, and then let's put the value of he here. Actually, we're not just going to throw it like that. We're going to have to put a curly brace and then put it like this. Let's say subjects mapping. We're mapping through just subjects, and E we are okay, we don't need this, I suppose. What is going on here? Definitely, let's see. Okay, we have the subjects and then we're mapping through it. Okay, yeah, this should work. What is going on? Okay, let's do this. Let's see what is happening. Oh yeah, it's working. I don't know why Visual Studio Code is shouting. Maybe if I put the fragment, it's not going to shout. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, now it's happy. Okay. Okay, so you can see we have Java, we have Python and Java. Let's put a comma here to separate the items. You can see, right? Python, Java. Let's add another one, maths. Let's add it. You can see, right? But now we don't want to show it like this, right? You saw the way I show it to you in the demo. So that is exactly what we want to do. So let's remove all this and redo it. So let me just remove. Actually, I should have copied it so I don't have to type again. But anyway, let's do that. I have a div that I have already defined. Let me go outside of this div. Okay, I think I have that div here. Awesome, awesome. So now let's do this. Let's say subject. Let's do the loop again. Map. And let's have a he and the position, the index. So that, because we need that index when we are trying to delete an item from the array. So I'm going to have this, open this brackets, and let's do div. Okay, awesome. So here we are going to then display, let me see. Okay, so we should have another div, and then we should display the item. Because I already have some set of classes, CSS classes that I'm using to style this. So I'm just going to type it here, have them written out somewhere so I can easily, oh, this one is sub items, awesome. So now we have this, what is going on here? We have this, this. I open this guy. Okay, I think I need to close that map method. Oh no, what is going on? So subjects map this guy. Oh, sorry, I should have this, and then I should then close it. But it's still shouting at us, and I think I know why. So we should have this. Okay, let's think for a second. So we have this guy. The class name is correct this time, and okay. The class name is correct. Okay, let's add a key. It might be because of that. Oh yeah, I guess so. So let's add a key and add the index position as the key. Okay, looks like we're all set. Now let's see what is going on. As you can see, the whole world is happy and everyone is rejoicing. Now let's add more elephants. Let's add it. As you can see, it's working perfectly. Now to finish this course, the useState course, I like to also add the functionality to delete this item from the array from the using the setState hook. I mean the useState hook. So I'm going to add a button, a close button here. So I also already have the CSS class to do that. So sorry. And also, like I said earlier, I'm going to push all this code to GitHub so that you guys can download the code from there. So let's close this guy. Awesome. So now we're going to put the close. I already import the close component, which is just going to give me the close icon essentially. So let's see how that is working out. But I do have a class for it. So style it. Actually, let's see without the class. Let's see what it looks like. You see, it looks just like this. But let's put the class and see. I think I just use the class to give it some padding. So let's say class, and that is CU. CU is Coding University, SVG. Now we should see it move a little bit to the right. As you can see, right? That is perfect. Now let's add an event handler here so that we can delete an item from the array. And that will take us back to this place where we're going to create a function. So let's create another function, say const, let's say handle. You can name your function anything you like. It doesn't have to, but just try as much as possible to make it descriptive so that other people can understand your code. I'm going to just throw in something. You can throw in anything here. You can call it coding. You can call it just pass. It's basically you're passing an argument to this function. The argument is going to be supplied by the whatever place in the code, in your code base that is calling this action. I mean this function is going to supply this argument, and then this argument we are trying to use it in deleting an item from this array. So I will call it del because that is more understandable. Everyone likes that, you know, when we delete something. Okay, so let's say new. We're just going to define an array, you know, just like we did previously when let's say subject, when we're adding it, subject array. And that is going to be equal to, we're going to filter the array and see, let's use the filter method, and we're going to have this e, and we're going to check that e to see if it is not equal to the, let's use the streets assignment. So sorry, if it's not equal to the argument that is being supplied here. So if it is not equal, basically this filter method is used to return an array of items in this particular array, in the object that we are filtering, that does not, where this, basically we are saying if e is equal to, if the item of the array, it is not equal to this del, then it should return them. Basically it should supply, it should tell us that they are still part of the array. But where this e is equal to del, then it's not going to return it, meaning that we are no longer associated with that item. We divorce that item. It's no longer part of a member of the array. And that is so easy to understand, I presume. So let's then set states, set subjects, and then we just put in the new subject array, and that is it right here. And I think with this we should be all set. All we just need to do is to then add this call this function where we are, when we click on the close icon, and I'm going to just add it to this div. So we're going to have on click, and then we're going to just put it right here. And it looks like that should be pretty much it. And now if we go back here, you can see it's still right here. If we click on this, okay, let me refresh so that it can recompile. Okay, now let's do something. Java, awesome. Python, awesome. Now let's test our delete functionality. Delete. Oh, okay, it looks like we are not there yet. I think I see what is going on. So when we call this function, we need to pass in the position of the array that we are deleting. Actually, not the position, the item that we are deleting. So we are going to basically call this function this way and then pass the array, the item here. Otherwise, how do we know what item we are deleting? So I think it should be something like this. But, oh no, that should not be correct. Oh, sorry, I missed the arrow function. Yeah, it should just be something like this. So then we should be okay and the whole world should be happy. Now let's put in Java. Let's put in Python. Let's put in C++. Those are some of the fun things we're going to be learning at this YouTube channel. So but slow and steady win the race. Okay, so let's delete C++. Perfect, and that works like a charm. Awesome. And that brings us to the end of this class. As you can see, we have implemented the useState hook, and that brings us to the end of this useState hook class. And I hope you enjoyed it. Again, like I said earlier, this code is going to be I'm going to share the link to the GitHub repository where you can download the code and use it as you like. I don't really care. I'm going to be uploading codes there to the public to use. You probably won't see a lot of codes because I have most of them in private mode. But this one, as we make the YouTube video, we're going to be uploading them to the to GitHub, and you can go there and download as and when due. And that brings us to the end, and I hope you can help us share this this video with your network, like I said earlier, and also like this video and subscribe to this channel, and please also turn on the notification button so that you can get notified anytime I release a new video. I'm going to do my best to release a new video, at least one video every week, and I strive to give you the best quality possible so that we can learn the right way, because programming itself, sometimes it could be boring. But if we attempt to make it interesting, I believe we can all learn, easily, and we can learn fast also. All right, I think that will be the end of this class, and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye.